Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Long time no see. And yes, I do need a haircut. So, a couple of interesting pieces of news came out today. Uh, some good, some bad. Uh, the bad news, as I see it, your mileage may vary, is Earl lost the motion for reconsideration in the Court of Appeals. Um, just like for the record, I was very clear from the beginning that he has a low chance of winning on appeal. He has an even lower chance of winning on the motion for reconsideration. Because there's two options. There's two options for the motion for reconsideration. Either he could get the panel of judges who said no, that there was nothing bad enough in there to warrant a new trial, say, oh yeah, we were wrong. Or he could get a panel, which my understanding, again, I don't practice law in Texas, would be like a group of like 9 or so justices from the Court of Appeal to do the motion for reconsideration. And getting 9 justices to agree on something is, there's low odds either way. So, yeah. So he's not out of options yet. The next step, as I see it, if he chooses to continue, is to petition the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, which is different than the Texas Court of Appeals. It's their version of the Supreme Court for the criminal matters, is to petition them for a hearing at the essentially Supreme Court level, state Supreme Court level. Now, there's very low odds of that being successful. First of all, there's a low chance that they'll actually accept the petition for the matter to be heard by the Court of Criminal Appeals. And even if it is heard by the Court of Criminal Appeals, there's a very low chance that they will reverse the decision of the Court of Appeals. So very low odds. Very, very low odds. But even at that point, it's not done yet. I have received some messages saying it's done. It's still not done at that point because he still has options in federal court. He could petition for writ of habeas corpus to a federal district court once he's exhausted his state court options, because there are constitutional issues at play at the trial level, at the state trial level, denial of due process, in a fair hearing, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. These are constitutional issues that come into play. Right to effective counsel is a constitutional issue. So there are federal questions. So it is ripe for a federal writ of habeas corpus, and so he still has options. And then if he loses that, he could appeal that to the up through the federal chain, to potentially going to the Supreme Court of the United States. Again, low odds of that happening, like almost nil. So close to nil that, just... But there are possibilities for success for Earl. Earl, by the way, being Earl David Warden, the alleged godfather of auditing, which was a name that I think he gave himself because there were auditors well before he existed. He essentially piggybacked into fame by being a bitch when the Batosai was arrested. Anyway, on a personal level, I am disappointed. I expected the outcome, but I am still disappointed because I am not convinced that Earl committed the specific crime that he was convicted of this time. There are no doubts in my mind that he was a rapist. There are no doubts in my mind that he was a felon with a firearm. There are no doubts in my mind that he stole cars. There are no doubts in my mind about a lot of things. But I have a lot of doubts about this. And I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent. I am not convinced he's guilty by any stretch of the imagination, but that doesn't mean he's innocent. And of course, you're going to have a different opinion, and that's fine. But silly old me believes in fair trials. Silly old me also does not really appreciate all the jokes made about, his butthole being stretched in prison. They're in poor taste, and essentially you are celebrating criminal acts being done on someone who was convicted of doing criminal acts. Like, two wrongs don't make a right. The point of prison is not to punish people by having them raped. And it's disgusting, honestly. I have never celebrated someone going to prison or jail. I never will. It is something that I would never wish on anybody. I would hate facing that myself. It's a terrible thing. Prisons are full of terrible people. The prisoners themselves are terrible people, generally speaking, and they do terrible things to each other, generally speaking. You live in fear every day, generally speaking. And the guards, they're in that environment all the time. They can't help but be jaded and be affected by it. And I'm sure they're not the most caring, empathetic people who want to see prisoners well taken care of and protected from each other and the depravities that are inflicted on them. So I would still love to see Earl get a fair trial. A fair trial doesn't mean he's convicted, and it also doesn't mean he's found not guilty. A fair trial means that he gets a trial that doesn't have all of the issues that were raised in his original trial. And you're going to say, well, the courts have all found that he got a fair trial. Technically, no. They found that the issues that arose in the trials didn't arise to the point where he deserved a new trial, where he had a right to a new trial. And, judges make mistakes and courts of appeals make mistakes. That's why there's Supreme Courts. And, Supreme Courts make mistakes. And that's why Supreme Courts sometimes revisit old decisions and say that those old decisions are no longer binding because they were decided in error. Any institution that has humans in it is subject to errors. And so, I know a lot of people celebrate Earl's imprisonment because they think that, that he was a bad person for doing the auditing and things like that. And he was a bad person. He is a bad person. But that doesn't mean he should be convicted of things that he didn't do. And I'm not saying he didn't do it, but if he didn't do it, he shouldn't have been convicted of it. So that's bad news for me. Again, I don't like it simply because everybody deserves a fair trial, whether I like him or not. And I don't like Earl, but he deserves a fair trial, in my opinion. Your mileage may vary. In better news today, I found out that that a federal district court judge has found that Trump's order, where he ordered people, non-citizens who were here on green cards or student visas, things like that, would be deported if they protested Israel or protested in favor of the Palestinians. Once again, I really don't give a shit about Israel other than the fact that we're sending money and troops to die and military equipment over there. I really don't give a shit what happens in any other country besides the U.S., but this particular executive order was from the U.S., and it affected people in the U.S., people who were here legally, and it, on its face, it was obvious it violated the First Amendment. I know Peter Coventry is in my comment sections right now hearing this, you're just an anti-Semite. Yeah, whatever, dude. Go suck a dick or whatever it is that you do. But it was obvious on its face that it violated the First Amendment. So I am happy that a court, a Reagan appointee, who apparently still honors and follows the Constitution, was like, yeah, this is blatantly, just obviously, clearly a violation of the First Amendment. You cannot do this. And so I am ecstatic, because remember, rights are taken away from you, not in chunks, but they're taken away piece at a time. They're dug away slowly, bit by bit. And if the government sets a precedent where they take away First Amendment rights for non-citizens who are here legally, then they're going to be able to start taking the rights away from citizens. And that's a depressing thought. But remember, the government hates you and wants you dead. But anyway, this one case, this one sparkle of light in a sea of darkness, was that a federal judge found the balls to say, no, we're actually going to follow the Constitution, at least for now, which is nice. So a little bit of good news, bad news. These are stories that interest me. I don't make videos for things that don't interest me, so I get it. For those of you who actually like my content, sorry. It's been a pretty dry spell. I haven't really seen anything that interests me. But yeah, that's where we're at. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.